Swagatang awuso. Welcome, friends. This video is designed to be a bit of an aid to anyone taking the Summer Pali Reading Group. Um, this reading group is not going to go in depth on grammar. We're not going to do, uh, huge amounts of grammatical analyses, but it's unavoidable that we have to talk a little bit about how words function. So I thought it'd be a good idea to take um, a sample sentence and zero in on one word and see how um, this word would appear in Pali. And I think that'll give us a good understanding of what how Pali kind of functions. So I did take a kind of a strange sounding sentence. Excuse me. It might sound like the utterance of an alien talking to a fellow alien. But there's kind of a reason I picked this word. The human sees the dog. So here the human is the subject, is the one doing the action. Um, if we were to put the word human in Pali, we would see this word, manuso. One thing to keep in mind is Pali does not have what's called like a definite or indefinite article. It doesn't have the words the or a. So if we were to see this in a Pali sentence, we don't really know if it's the or a. Pali isn't obligated to say that. They have words that can sort of specify that, but they don't have to use them. And so we would just let context help us determine what an English translation would be, what the best English translation would be. The other thing to keep in mind is this MAN in human and MAN in manuso. That's not a coincidence. These go back to the same root word, or come from the same word, because English and Pali go back to the same mother language. Known as Proto-Indo-European. So we'll see this happen a lot in English and Pali, where we'll see these words that look familiar, and it's because they are. Okay, now if we have more than one human being, just like in English, we kind of change the ending of the word, we add an S. In Pali, we change the ending as well. Manusa. This is people or humans. The humans or humans see the dog. Now, what happens if we reverse this? If the dog sees the human. Now, in English, we've just changed the word order. We don't have to change the way the words look. Again, we just rely on word order, on placement to give us the meaning. That's not actually true in Pali. In this case, if we wouldn't use the word manuso, we would use the word manusang. No, sorry. A little early there. Manusang. And this ending tells us that, hey, this is an object. Just kind of like whom tells us that that's an object. We don't use the word whom a lot, or him or her. We know that those are actually not subjects. He is a subject, not him. She is a subject, not her. And then this would have a plural form too. Manu. Oh, say. Manu say. This would be the dog sees the humans. Now, we'll take one other case, and then actually, if you want to tune out after that, it would probably be okay. But I want to go through all the different cases that do crop up in Pali. If the dog, say, is with the human or with a human, in Pali, they would say Manu Sena. Manu Sena. And Manu Sena is this entire thing. It's with the or a human. Pali doesn't have, they don't really use prepositions to clarify this sort of meaning. Again, it's just the word ending, or the ending of the word is telling us this function. This also, it wouldn't make sense in this case, but say you were to cut down a tree with a saw, you would use, this is the kind of ending you would expect, called the instrumental ending. Actually, the Indian grammarians just number these cases: first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. If you've studied Latin or Greek or other languages that have cases, you'll sometimes hear these terms like nominative, accusative, instrumental, but don't let those scare you. That's not any sort of big deal. Like I said, the Indian grammarians, they just number these cases and you kind of know what they are and what they do. In the plural, manusehi. So this is, the dog is with humans or with the humans, manusehi. If, say, the dog gives something to a human or the human, it would be manu sasa. It could also be manu saya. We won't really talk about the difference there, but those are two ways that you would see this. In the plural, manu sanam. Manu sanam gives it to humans. Again, we use a preposition in English. We use, other words. In Pali, they don't do that. They just rely on the ending to tell us how the word is functioning. If the dog were to take something from a human or from the human, manu sa. And if he were to take it from humans, manu sehi. The notice here, you might think, hey, this looks the same. In this case, this really wouldn't ever be ambiguous, because this is, again, this would be a plural subject. This is singular and would not be the subject of a sentence. So in context, this is not likely to be ambiguous. Now here you might say, do we know, would it be clear in context if it's, because these endings look the same, is it the dog with or taking something from? Again, in context, it would probably be very clear, because the verb would give us a lot of information about what's going on, and even the larger context than that. Okay, so what if we want to express like possession? Like here in English, we can add an apostrophe S, the human's dog. This is what it looks like in Pali. Again, it actually is the same case here. And again, it is not going to present much of a problem. And we'll just leave it at that. I don't think it's going to present much of a problem. Anytime there are, quote, problems or ambiguities, they can be worked out, It's and sometimes there are ambiguities in our native language. It's not like language doesn't present ambiguities, and sometimes on purpose to sort of give more depth to give more depth to the teaching under discussion. I mean, we're learning Pali because we want to learn about we want to learn the Buddha's teaching. We want to understand that, come to a deeper understanding. Okay, so if this is the plural, manu sanam. Oh, don't need the capital there. This would be what that looks like. Humans. Humans is his dog. And then in the last case, we won't use the example of a dog, but say there is a heart in the human or in a human, it would look like manu se, and here manu. Again, there's not likely to be much in the way of confusion. Now, there is one other case. This is almost everything. There's sort of a subcategory of this first one, and that is if you were to say something like, hey, human. If I could spell that right. Hey, human. Not that either. In that case, it would look like manusa. Manusa. And here it would still just be manusa. But in this particular instance, we would see a difference. Kind of like if you're familiar with the expression et tu Brute, where Julius Caesar was speaking to Brutus, his one of his assassins. Even you, Brutus, you too, Brutus. Notice in that case, the word is Brutus. His name is Brutus, but when he is directly addressed, it's Brute. So it's a Latin example of that. You have it in Greek with, if you're familiar with Mass, Kyrie eleison, it's O Lord, or in the Latin word would be Domine from Dominus. So that kind of gives us the summary of these cases. I'll just put this here to be kind of complete. And I hope this helps. If you have any questions, if it's not clear, I can't imagine that everything I said is extremely clear. If you have any questions, of course, leave it in the comments. Let me know, and I will do my best to address that. It is, whenever we begin a journey in language studies, it sometimes can seem daunting, but like anything else, the more we immerse ourselves in the study and avail ourselves of all the tools that are available, we can come to an understanding of what's going on. So with that, I hope this helps, and I bid you peace.